tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So, seems like it would be a good idea to mention the 5 hindrances. Many of you know them intimately, and some of you might know them, but not by name. So the 5 hindrances, the Buddha in his compassion pointed these things out in a way that we can recognize them and potentially not get caught. So these 5 hindrances, they're called hindrances because they hinder us on our path to awakening. They're not major obstacles if we know them, for what they are. But if we don't, and we take them to be who and what we are, if we think that's me, I'm like, I'm this, then they can hold us back a lot. So those 5 hindrances, the first 2 are sensual desire and ill will. So those are a pair of opposites. Sensual desire, wanting to draw things to us, looking for something outside of ourselves to make us complete. Ill will, pushing away what we don't like, trying to get rid of what is here but we don't want to have. And then sleepiness and dullness, sloth and torpor, is a sort of low energy where the mind gets dull and the body feels heavy. And it's hard to stay awake in the meditation. It's sloth and torpor. And then restlessness and agitation, or restlessness and worry. One translator used to call it worry and flurry, which I kind of like. So that kind of like, can't settle, And those are also a pair of opposites. One, the energy is sort of sluggish and heavy. And then the other, there's just too much energy, you just don't know what to do with it. And then the 5th hindrance is doubt. And doubt has this nature of going around and around. And it seems as if, if I just stay with it long enough, I'm going to get to some clarity. But the nature of doubt is that it never arrives anywhere. It just keeps going around and around. So, I had lots of experience lots of time to get to know these hindrances in my monastic life and to see how they play out. And before we see them as hindrances, that we think they're me. This is why I want to point them out, and I pretty much every retreat point them out, because excuse me. Because if we don't know them for what they are, we think we think I'm so restless, or I'm so whatever it is. We think that this is who and what we are, but it's just a tendency of the mind that's coming up and like stealing our attention. So we might be, we put all this effort into coming on a retreat, meditation retreat, and then we arrive, and then we get our spot, and then we're kind of settling in, and maybe things are a little bit, maybe get some pleasant meditation a little bit, and then one of those hindrances, or 2, or maybe 3, that are working together, come in, and then we're caught by them, because we don't recognize them for what they are. So then we're just either caught up in them, we're caught up in the thinking, the restlessness, or or we're fast asleep through every meditation, or we're sitting doubting. What am I supposed to be doing? Should I be doing this? Or what was the instruction? Or we might be having like major, life doubts. They can come up too on retreat and off retreat. And it seems like if we just keep thinking about them, we're gonna get some clarity. But that's not the way, actually. It's not to follow doubt. We can investigate and look more clearly at what we're wanting to understand, and that can bring clarity. But just following doubt around and around doesn't lead us anywhere. So to know these hindrances for what they are. So if there's a lot of sensual desire, if the mind just is obsessed with sensuality, and we really, we put all this effort into coming on retreat, and then the mind is just like somewhere else altogether, then we don't want to just let that run. And it also doesn't mean that we're a bad person. It just means that there's been a lifelong, or perhaps many lives of cultivating, giving into, and giving energy to sensuality. And so if we've done that, then that's going to have a lot of momentum. And so there are various practices one can do to counter that. So with sensual desire, there's the counter to sensual desire is seeing the unattractiveness. So if we have a lot of, like if we're obsessed with what's going to be for lunch, and we get all excited about the food, I got fries today, and then what happens when we put those fries in our mouth and chew them a little bit? Is it still delicious? Is it still nice? Is it still attractive? And then when we swallow the food, then is it something we would want to eat? So these are the reflections that help with countering sensual desire. And if there's a lot of sexual desire, then the practice is to bring to mind the unattractive nature of the body. So it's not. So if you already have a lot of aversion to your body, don't do this practice. It's not the right thing. You don't want to make it's not about. It's not meant to be arousing aversion and hatred towards oneself at all. But it's a cooling, a balancing practice. So if you have a lot of sensual desire, then to look at this body. So when we go forth, when a monastic goes forth, they have to reflect on the 5 external attributes of the body: hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. So you reflect on that. So the hair of the head. You don't just say them, hair of the head, hair of the body, but you really think about it. So what the hair of the head? So hair can look really, really lovely. Someone's got nice hair. It can be really beautiful and attractive. But then if you take a hair and look at that hair, and maybe drop it in your soup. Not sure if I really like that hair in the soup, Or if you think about a scalp, like dandruff and lice can be in the hair. All kinds of stuff can go on in the hair. It gets oily if you don't wash it for a while. It starts to smell bad. So hair of the head. It's all of those things. It can look lovely, and it can also smell like a sheep. If you don't wash it often enough. So that's hair of the head, and then hair of the body. People go to great lengths to try and get rid of hair on their body. It's kind of funny, really, because the body has hair. It's a hairy thing for many people. There are some cultures where there's very little bodily hair, and then there's people trying to get rid of the hair that is naturally growing, hide the hair, pull it out, and what's that? what do you do that? Where you kind of electrocute your hair follicles. I forget what it's called now, but I'm glad I hadn't had to do that. You know, you go to these kind of painful ends to try not to have hair where hair is growing. And then if you look at that hair of the body, it's not necessarily very attractive, you know, armpit hair. It's not very exciting really, is it? So these are the ways we contemplate. Hair of the head, hair of the body, nails. Nails is a big thing, isn't it? Beautiful nails. I actually quite enjoy, you know, the nail art. It's quite fun. But, and not that I don't want to have it on my hands, but I like seeing other people. It's quite fun to see. But nails, you know, they're nothing. They're just this. They're kind of useful. It's handy having them. But are they really beautiful? So when we clip our nails, and there are all those little nail clippings, is that something you'd kind of want to send to your sweetheart? Don't forget me, you know. It's just not very lovely. And of course, I won't go into too much detail, but you know, nails can get kind of gross and get fungus, and as you get older, they get thicker, and it gets all complicated. You know, sometimes you have to have them pulled out, and so yeah, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth. So, you know, having nice teeth, it's a big thing in America to have nice teeth and white teeth. I'm not doing too good on the white teeth level, but never mind. But people are really into teeth here. You've got to have nice teeth. So, if you reflect on teeth, you know, they grow, and when you're a little baby, they're coming out, and it hurts, you cry a lot, and then you get your whole set of teeth, and then they fall out, and then you get more, and maybe when you're a little kid, you don't realise that that's just a one chance. It's not going to happen again. And then as we get older, you know, start to get maybe cracks and chips and in the teeth, and teeth start to rot. Get fillings, and you have to have crowns, and you have to have implants, and maybe you have to have dentures, because the teeth decay. That's their nature, like everything actually. So if you really look at the teeth, you know, then of course, even if they're in good shape, those teeth, when you're still young and they still look nice, and you've eaten a meal and you've got stuff stuck in them. If you don't clean your teeth, they're going to be kind of gross really quick. So just to reflect in these ways, these are ways we reflect to cool the excitement around a body and then skin. Skin is an interesting one. So there's beautiful skin. Yeah, it can be very beautiful. It can be like a bloom on the skin that's very attractive. And people spend lots of money to, you know, make the skin look nice. Even people, you know, young people who already have beautiful skin will spend loads of money to try and make it better. And then as we get older, the skin gets all kinds of things happening, scars, and it gets wrinkly and saggy, and you know, all those things happen. As the face changes shapes, you don't look like we used to look, and that's how skin is. And also skin sweats. You know, it's meant to. It's an organ that sweats, but like. So if you start to think in those ways, if you're excited about a body and then you start to think of in those ways, it gets a bit less exciting. So these are practices that can help cool the passions, to bring in the other side of things. So it's not to make it repulsive, but to cool the mind, so we're not caught. And this is really helpful, you know, because it can be that we sit on retreat and the mind's just obsessing over some pleasant fantasies or experiences or hopes or whatever it might be, and we don't have to be caught by those. We we can bring in these antidotes that help cool the mind and bring more clarity. So these reflections on the body, they're seeing the body, the nature of the body as it is. It is like that. And that helps to balance. And if we have a lot of aversion, if we're sitting and we're complaining about this and annoyed about that, and maybe judging ourselves or judging other people, or just feeling like, oh, it's all just, the world is such a terrible place, it's all so hopeless, or this kind of thing, then there are different practices, but one of the important practices for countering aversion is the metta, so loving kindness. So the heart practices, actually, all of them help. And they're not just a repair, they're not just like, there's ill will, so I have to cultivate a bit of metta, but they are actually transformative practices. So we will be doing more of I will be offering more guidance around these heart practices, but they're, for one thing, with the practice of metta, loving kindness or benevolence, we're moving away from the thoughts, moving away from all those judgmental thoughts, or critical thoughts, or aversive thoughts, and you're coming in contact with your heart, and you're looking at what's there. Maybe it's a bit defended or tight, or even a bit afraid. Sometimes aversive thoughts come up because we're afraid. We're trying to keep everything away and control everything. So this quality of metta, kindness, generating loving kindness for one's own being and letting it spread out for the benefit of all beings is a healing practice. It heals the fears and the pains, really, of the heart. And it transforms our heart. And when we really cultivate it deeply, it's not just like a band-aid, it's a deep, deep healing and transformation. So cultivating metta, actually whether you're an aversive type or not, cultivating metta is really, really good. It's transformative. And all of the heart qualities are valuable to cultivate, but the quality of metta is quite sunny. It is kind of like the sun at midday, just shining on everything indiscriminately. It's not concerned with whether it's radiating to a lovely person, somebody who's already enlightened, or someone who's completely caught up in delusion and harm. Metta doesn't discriminate in that way. It's just radiating like the sun on all beings, and likewise internally. It's not only going to have kindness for the good bits, that we see and hear, but it's for everything. The abandoned parts, the places we regret, the parts that we can't get together yet. It's like metta just radiates on all of it, and transforms our experience inside. And it actually transforms the heart, opens the heart. And another antidote to ill will is reflection on the elements, the 4 elements of earth, water, fire and air. The simple categorization of life, you could say, of phenomena, perhaps I should say. So that practice is also very cooling and calming. And it can also be very, very insightful when it's cultivated deeply. So one recognizes here in this body there is earth element. So earthiness, so solidity, heaviness, bones, teeth, nails, hair. They can be seen as earth element. I mean, even for me, the muscles also have that. They're a bit of a mix of things, but that also comes up behind the muscles. There's this sort of earthiness. So we're experiencing the body from an earthy perspective, the sort of heavy, solid, groundedness of this body. And then the water element, the fluidity and the blood and the digestive juices and the tears and all kind of like fluid qualities, fluidity in the body, liquids in the body. So we are aware of those liquids that we have. All these, they're all different. Blood and tears are different, but they all have the quality of fluidity. So this, thinking of them as water element. I mean, they have water in them also. And then, in fact, I think the body is supposed to be 70% water. So the water element here inside the body. And then the fire element. So the fire element being warmth, heat. There's the heat of the digestive system. There's the heat of just the natural bodily heat, and then it can increase if we're sick. Get a fever that tries to burn off the kind of purity, like clear up any viruses or whatever. And then there's also a lack of heat element when we're cold. We get when maybe our fingers get too cold, or so the cold with the nose, the extremities get cold and sort of lose heat. So that's also heat element. It's like an absence of heat. And then the air element, the breath, is the most accessible. The air element. So this is all of the internal elements. So we can experience them in that way in our body. And all of those elements are also external. So obviously the earth element, there's the earth element here inside, and then there's the earth element outside. There's the earth, planet Earth, that we're on, and then there's things like, the floor, the solid things, earth element. And then water element. So I've got a cup of water here, and many of you also have water. And that water is external until we drink it, and then it becomes internal. And and then all of the waters outside, the pond, the beautiful pond full of geese that have come in to spend the night there now. And the streams and rivers and seas and oceans. This is all water element. So that's external water element. And then there's internal water element. And then the fire element. So the warmth inside, and then of course the sun, the great fire element for our solar system. And then there's fires and different kinds of ways of heating. There's many ways, and there's the candles burning. So there's fire element and the warmth in the room. So this is all fire element. That's like external fire element. And then air element, which is all around us, in this room, outside the room, moving and still, and it's everywhere. So this is the external air element. And when we reflect on the four elements, the four elements here, we reflect on the four elements internally, excuse me, and the four elements externally, and then we move our attention between the two, internal, external, because we tend to have a strong sense of separation between the two, internal and external. But we just, excuse me, So we look at that, get to know the internal elements and then the external elements, and moving between the two, it's the sense of internal and external starts to break down, and there's just earth element, there's just water element, there's just air element and fire element and air element. So if we have so if you cultivate that, if you use that as a practice, you can do it while sitting, you can do it while doing walking meditation, you can just sit in nature and explore that. If you cultivate that, then and you have some enemy, somebody that's really difficult, you really dislike, and then you just imagine them sitting in front of you, and you pay attention to the elements here in you, and you realize that the earth element's here and earth element is there too. It's the same earth element. And water element is here and water element is there too. It's the same water element. And fire element is here and fire element is there. It's the same fire element. It moves around. And air element, this is a practice that somebody shared with me that they discovered. Air element, if you imagine, say, your arch enemy, if you have one, sitting in front of you, and you're breathing and they're breathing, and you're breathing and they're breathing, and you can't distinguish where your breath ends and theirs starts. Then you realize you're kind of part of each other. So this is a way of breaking down the aversion to others, other people, other things, by seeing the sameness, paying attention to the sameness. And if you have a lot of sleepiness and dullness, there are certain things one could do. You could stand up in your meditation. The Buddha, funny enough, recommended pulling your ears. I've never found it to be very effective, actually. Something you can do. And another thing is to develop the perception of light. So so the mind gets really dull and heavy with sloth and torpor. And so to open your eyes and take in the light that's here. And then, if during the daytime to go outside and just to take in the light, the sunlight, so that you're brightening your mind with the light that is here. So that's helpful to do with, you can do it with a candle flame or with an electric light or with the sunlight, obviously not looking into the sun, but just taking in the light. And then when you do that, if you do that quite a bit, it does brighten the mind. And then when you sit in meditation, you can bring to mind that light, that brightness. Even if everything else feels kind of dark and dull, just see if you can bring even just like a little candle flame there in your mind's eye. And then that helps to brighten your mind. And when the body's heavy and lethargic, moving of it is good. So, walking meditation, some stretching is helpful. And with the restlessness and agitation, so this is a big deal actually. A lot of people get caught in restlessness and anxiety, so they kind of go together. And anxiety is a big, I think actually with sloth and torpor, that sort of heaviness, that can also often sort of slide into depression. They can be connected. And with the restlessness and agitation, that can spin into anxiety. And so we need to try and find some balance and not let that just spin out. So with the restlessness and agitation or worry. So one practice is grounding is one thing. So when there's a lot of restlessness, there's a lot of air element, sort of movement and air. So having a sense of the heaviness of the body and the skeleton. So if you can bring to mind the skeleton inside your body, this part of your body, and the skull and jaw and teeth and vertebrae, and going through all the bones. You don't have to be, you don't have to know every bone, but just to have a sense of the rib cage and the sternum and the pelvis and the big thigh bones, and and then the smaller bones in the hands and feet, and so just having a sense of them, of that heaviness and solidity and the skeleton as a whole can help to ground. And also really putting emphasis on the out-breath, and letting go on the out-breath. Because what's happening with the out-breath is there is letting go. That's what it is. It's letting go of the breath. So the out-breath can be really paying attention to the out-breath can be a way of sort of letting go of the excess energy that's built up through restlessness. And then, so sometimes it feels like when we're restless we want to move. Moving would be better, but unfortunately it has the opposite effect. So if we're restless and then we're moving more, we tend to get more and more restless, and we can't find that stillness. But if we really make an intention to center, and then let go on the out-breath, then we can find some stillness. It's like we pull all that energy into centeredness instead of into more and more movement. And then with doubt, we can try things out. Because one of the things with doubt is we think that there's a right answer. We're trying to find that right answer. So instead of thinking there's a right answer that we should know and should get to, especially sometimes the stakes are high, and then we're so desperately trying to find that right answer, but we don't know what it is, So instead of having that framework, we have a sense of curiosity. Okay, let's try this and see what happens. Let's see, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be doing, so okay, let's just try something and see what the results are. And obviously using a little bit of discrimination and wisdom in there, not just doing wildly random things, but try something out. So this is when we're investigating in this way, we're bringing our attention or our attention back in alignment with the path. So the path, there's sati, mindfulness, the awakening factors actually. There's sati, awareness or mindfulness. And then there's this sense of investigation. What's going on? What do I want to do with this? What's happening? And so that's that. And then virya, staying with it, staying with that inquiry. So this is bringing us back onto the path when we do this. So if we're caught in doubt, circling around and around, then stopping and trying something out, seeing how it goes, evaluating it at the end, and then is it the right direction or not? Do I want to do that? Is that where I want to go or not? And not having to get everything right, because we don't know. We're making our way through life. There are a lot of unknowns, so we have to try things out. So those hindrances are bound to arise, and like I say, there might be one, there might be two, you might have three working together. And so you want to get to know them. You want to be able to identify them. Because when you know them for what they are, when you can name them, oh yeah, I know you, you're restlessness and worry, aren't you? Oh yeah. So then they start to lose their power. So you see them and you name them, and then you look like, what was the antidote? Oh yeah, let's try that. And then they won't spin you around, because they do otherwise throughout our life. And then the opposite of the hindrances are the awakening factors, which I'll just touch on. So sati, as I've mentioned, and Dhammavicaya, which is that sense of investigation, curiosity, interest. Virya is just like energy, but it's not a forceful energy, it's like sustaining, that we stay with it, we stay with it. We don't just get curious and then move on to the next thing, but we're interested and we stay with it until things start to get clear. And then piti. Piti is like a joy, like a wholesome, like a natural joy. It can be quite subtle or it can be very strong, that can arise when we're aligned with the path in that way. And then passaddhi, which is a calming quality. So that's something also, if we have a lot of restlessness, we can intentionally bring an intention of calming to our experience. And then samadhi, a collectedness, so collecting the mind. This is more like it comes about as we stay with our experience and we calm our experience. If we're not if we're sleepy and dull, then don't try and calm. But if there's like good energy or a lot of energy, calming. And then there's a collectedness, and then there's upekkha, this equanimity that arises. So these are the awakening factors, and the first three. So sati is mindfulness is always needed. It's always needed on the path, and then those next three of investigation or curiosity and energy, sustaining attention, and joy. So we can't do the joy. The joy is like it arises naturally or not. So we don't worry about that, whether it does or not. But if it does, notice it, appreciate it. So those are the energizing factors. So if you're a little bit low, dull, sluggish, then to put energy into those qualities. And then the next three, calming, collectedness, and equanimity. These are more like the calming qualities, and so we can do the calming. We can remember and intend. We can't always do it, but we can intend the calming to calm the system. And then if we stay with it, then this sense of collectedness can start to happen. And if we notice that, it can help. It's like I can appreciate it, not grasp it, but appreciate it. Oh yeah, there's sort of the mind's not scattering around, it's starting to settle and collect. And then this sort of equipoise that can arise from that, which is an evenness and it's kind of a lightness and an evenness of experience. So these qualities are the awakening factors, and they support awakening in the moment, and they also the factors that lead to full awakening. So to know the difference between the hindrances and the awakening factors is important. It's actually the fourth establishment of mindfulness, but somehow it wants to come in tonight. So to know the difference. And none of them are who and what we are, but we can cultivate supportive conditions for awakening. And we can get to know those hindrances. They'll keep showing up. Don't feel upset that they come up, because it's gonna happen. And then you may have times when they fall away. And so if that happens, see if maybe I don't really want to give you instruction for what to do if they fall away, but if they fall away, then you'll experience more of a sense of peacefulness and well-being and ease. And this is lovely, And then what can easily happen is, we experience that and then we want more of that. So that's where desire is coming in again. And then we slip out off the awakening factors and into the hindrances. So we can't grasp those things. We can't grasp freedom from the hindrances, but we can always bring sati, mindfulness, awareness to what's going on, and then that discernment. Is this something to cultivate or not? Is this something I want to put in? It should be putting energy into or not? Do I need to be calming this or energizing? To have that discernment. Because sometimes I'll speak for myself actually. Sometimes I might sit down at a meditation and my energy is a bit low, but I really want to kind of get some concentration going. So I'm trying to calm the system, be with the breath and calming, but actually I'm already a little bit low energy, so calming it when there's low energy means falling asleep, or something like that. So and then it becomes battling with trying to fall asleep, but I'm really trying to get that samadhi, and it's like no, you want to put energy in when you're sleepy like that. So we can sometimes be fooled. We've got this idea of what we want. We want to get samadhi. We want to get really concentrated. And what was it? You've got to really just like calm the mind. And, well, first of all, you've got to see where are you starting from. Because if you're already a little dull, calming the mind isn't going to help you. And likewise, you might think like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to really put all my energy into trying to get really good meditation. So if you already got a lot of agitation going on, then you'll just get stressed out. So you've got to know where you're beginning from. And the Buddha's always pointing to the middle way. It's always in the middle. So if you've got too much energy, you want to come to the middle and calm that down. If you've got low energy, come to the middle and energize, So it's always coming to the middle. Okay, I think I'm complete there. But I'd like to just see whether there are any questions, actually, about what I've said tonight. Yes?
I have a question around when there's pain in the body and that appears. Do you offer like mindfulness and focusing on that, or do you draw attention away elsewhere? I'm curious what you've already shared, how pain is.
Yeah, so if there's pain in the body, the question is, if there's pain in the body, do you focus on the pain or do you bring your attention elsewhere? So it depends on the nature of the pain. So there is, we might have an injury, and then the body's in pain because there's an injury there. Then you need to take care of that. Be careful around that. Sit in a way that's not going to exacerbate the pain too much, because you don't want to be harming yourself. But there are also pains which I call meditation pain, that mysteriously arise when we sit still in stillness, but never arise at any other time. And then when the bell rings, they magically disappear. So if it's that kind of pain, you don't need to worry about it at all. It's a resistance pain. And what I would recommend is definitely not just focusing on the pain, because when we do that, we get stressed, we get nervous, we get agitated. And then we get tight around it, the pain gets worse. And so, first of all, just to discern what kind of pain is it, And if it's that meditation pain, you can know that, even if you have lots of thoughts about it, don't listen to those thoughts. It's just a reaction to sitting still. And then what I like to do is to because the attention tends to get glommed onto the pain. And so to shift that, I like to just check in different parts of the body. So left earlobe, what's happening there? Right earlobe, what's happening there? Left shoulder, right shoulder. I like the left first, but you can do right if you want. Left elbow, right elbow. Left hip, right hip. Left knee, right knee, left ankle, right ankle, left big toe, right big toe, and just go through like that, and just see what's going on, and that helps to distribute your attention. so you're not all just gripped on the pain. All right, so we're going to end for tonight.